I was brought up in a very much a clock and watch repairing environment because my grandfather was a clock repairer and a watch repairer, and then my father was a watch repairer, and so it was just a natural environment for me. I thought that every other person was probably a clock and watchmaker. My father went into the watch repairing side of the trade and became one of the main trade watch repairers for all of the shops around the Witney, Oxford area. I used to see what he used to do in this small workshop, and I would try and also repair watches and clocks. But I didn't ever think that I'd go into the trade because it was very, very insular at that point. But I got to a point where I decided to go into the trade, and I'm really glad I did now. Because it's my life, and there's nothing I'd like to do more than clock repairing. We have a great team working in the clock workshop, from an amazing admin team who deal with all the clocks coming in and going out, to all my clock and watchmakers who are absolutely superb. My daughter and my son are also involved in the business as well, which brings me great joy.
So I'm Millie, I'm Steve's daughter, I'm the workshop manager. I make sure that we have everything organised, that we have appointments for people coming in and out, and that we're getting everything ready on time, and communication between the clockmakers and the watchmakers and our customers. So I actually initially came on part-time after having children, and it was just one of those things that's sort of naturally grown. My dad didn't push me into the business. I think he wanted me to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and actually I figured that I loved being here, and it's really nice to be involved in a family business. When things first get brought into us, we take somebody's details down and make sure that we have all the information for that person, anything we need to know about the object. We then take them in and do a booking system. So the first thing that we do is photograph everything, and we photograph every individual part, and everything gets labelled up. It then gets put onto our database, ready for estimating. We look after so many different kinds of timepieces, and you know, whether something's worth £20 or £20,000, it means something to somebody. So it's really lovely to feel like we can help that person, and we have a big team of clockmakers and watchmakers, and it's really nice because everybody shares their knowledge, everybody looks after things together. We are a little bit of a family in here. We work really closely together. We have a real laugh together, but also, you know, we have a shared interest.
So I'm Ines, and I'm a clockmaker in the shop. I started here to do an internship, basically, because one of my friends came here, and when I got here, I've been offered to do the job there. So I accepted, and after my degree I came back, and it's been 3 years now. What interested me in the first place was the mechanic part. I found it was really intriguing, and I thought I would never understand how it works, or overcome the fear of touching it, and finally I really enjoyed it. You just have like a link with history and all the previous clockmaker who used to fix them exactly as we do now, like 100 years ago, and it's just amazing. I think every time you do a new repair you never done before, it's just really satisfying to just like be able to learn a new skill. And every time I feel really emotional is when sometimes you can read like there's some engraving of the back on the dial or in a case, and you can just see like the previous clockmaker who worked on it like a century ago, and it just makes you feel proud. I think like it's one of those jobs like people still see it as being a really manly job, as like you can use some tools, you can like use a big lathe, you can use hammers and stuff, and I think it's really great, but you don't have to be discouraged by the fact that you can be surrounded by people who have like a lot of cliche about it, because you know, all you need is skills and motivation, so at the end of the day everyone can do it.
My name's Philip Maynard, and I've been with Steve for quite some time now. I've forgotten how long now. My role is to be a clockmaker and restore any clocks that come in here, no matter what age and what condition they're in, put them back in working order to make the customer happy. What I enjoy about the repair work is I've been doing it for many years. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I started off as a 16-year-old, and then I got shown clocks, and I found clocks really exciting and interesting because no matter what you do with them, there's never one the same, and everything's different, and the challenge of the repairs is phenomenal. There's all sorts of different types of repairs you can do. Yeah, I'm still learning today after all this time. It's just always fascinating. There's never a dull moment. All clocks are different. Yeah, I like the challenge of having to use my brain to think, because in this trade you have to think like the clockmaker who made it, and he might have made a one-off clock, and you've got to think, now how did he do that? That part's missing, and I've got to make that exactly the same way as he thought it should be made. So that's where the challenge comes in. And with working with Steve, it's a great honour to work with Steve, in as much as the kind of work he gets in keeps your brain thinking all the time. It's not mundane, it's not boring. Every day you come in, it's a totally different type of work. It's great fun. I wouldn't go anywhere else now. I'm even retired and I still want to work here. I absolutely love the job. It's great. And everybody here is so fantastic. This is the most optimistic shop in the whole world. You're not allowed to work here if you're a pessimist, forget it.
Ever since I can remember, I've been going up to the church clock at St Mary's in Whitney to change the time, and my grandfather used to go up every single day to wind it up, which kept him really fit. And then he handed over to my father, who looked after it for a good number of years until I took over and started repairing the clock and keeping it ticking and keeping time. I'm really pleased that now my son Fred is getting involved in looking after the clock as well, and certainly comes up with me now and helps me with anything that I need to do, and is learning all about it so he can carry on the family tradition for a good number of years.
I'm Fred, I'm Steve's son. I'm an apprentice clockmaker. So what it involves is just sort of learning how to repair clocks. Been doing it for 2 years now, so I'm starting to get the hang of it. Be able to do most clocks now on my own, but every now and then got to get one of the other clockmakers to come give me a hand. I really enjoy working there. It's a lot of work in my hands, learning a lot all the time. And obviously, as fourth generation clockmaker, there's a lot of like sentimental value in doing it as well. Way of like carrying on a legacy that obviously my great granddad started. Being an apprentice, surrounded by loads of clockmakers, is really good because everyone sort of does things in different ways. So everyone teaches me ways of doing things, but differently. So I've got a range of skills now. It's quite rewarding working here because you get stuck on a job for a long time, but you got to persevere for it, and once you get it done, it really makes all that time that you spent working on that part, it makes you proud. It's always good to learn new things, so I really enjoy it because pretty much every day I learn something new.
My name is Sylvain and I'm a watchmaker at the Clock Workshop, so repairing watches mainly. So I'm French, so I've started my training in France and I've done all of my training in a watchmaking school in France. From the west of France and finishing it in Switzerland, next to Switzerland. And then I had to do a training period at the workshop with Steve. He was kind enough to say yes for me to come here. And at the end of that training period, he asked me to come around if I wanted to, which I did, and I'm now working at the Clock Workshop and it's been 5 years. We don't do just a standard service on normal watches, we do from a battery change to something like a full rebuild on an old watch that could be 200 years old. So that's the interesting part really, is to see a different watch every day basically to come in. The main difference between a clock and a watch would be the size obviously, but also the fact that the clock sits in a customer's house or in someone else's house. The clock sits here and you don't have an eye on it all the time. On a watch, you are wearing it and also we have to address all of the attention we have onto having a watch that is good looking at the end of the process, even if it's not asked. It's always good to touch up or clean dial hands, case. On the clock it's way easier, I would say, to make parts when the part is broken. On the watch it's rather complicated because everything is so intricate and so small. We can or have sometimes repair parts because they're not available, but when possible it's good to find genuine parts for the watch that's in need. We work in a great environment, we basically get on very well. We talk a lot about work, which means that there's a good follow-up on the work, and I think all of that reflects at the end on the quality of what we're doing, because we are able to communicate if something goes well or doesn't go well, goes very wrong. We can adjust ourselves very quickly in that way, and I think that's a good bonus working here.
My name's Roman. I'm one of the watchmakers at the Clock Workshop. So we work on a lot of like vintage, older pieces which have a more challenge to them than more modern stuff. So it's generally a challenge of doing it, and I enjoy using my hands, I enjoy making stuff, always have, so it's the main part of it. The biggest challenge of it is the size difference, I would say. I'm more of I do a bit of both, but I've always been more of a watchmaker, and because of that I find watches easier than clocks, but I'd say the biggest challenge and biggest difference between them is the size. You gotta get used to it, but I'd say with watches it's funny, like it doesn't really matter how small the things are you're working on as long as you can see them. A lot of it is just having a good vision on everything, being able to see what you're doing. In any sort of repair workshop you get some of those people who have maybe an ego to their sort of trade, and but here it's not like that at all. It's very relaxed, everyone's very kind, and it's just an easy place, easy environment to work in, which helps as well because it can be a stressful job sometimes working on special things, sentimental things. So when you have a good relaxed environment around you, that's always going to benefit. You're not just servicing the same movement every week, just taking it apart, putting it back together again, like a robot. You're having to think about certain different problems each time, so that's definitely something which is a bit more unique to this place, because a lot of service centres and things, you don't get that. You're just there, take apart, replace things, that's it. Here you have to do more traditional techniques a lot of times.
My name's David, I'm a clockmaker, have been for 41 years, and I also do a lot of training with the guys here. I enjoy the detail of clock repairing, down to the finest microscopic millimetre, working into microns even. It's that little detail, not everybody notices, but it's so important to me. I've got 40 years of experience, so it's important to pass that knowledge on. If that knowledge doesn't get passed on, somebody has to learn it all over again. There's lots of ways of doing stuff, even I still learn today. Even after 40 years of experience, you still learn new techniques or new ways of work holding or doing a repair.
I'm Kester Sims, I'm a clockmaker. I started getting interested in them when I was a child, mechanical clocks. It's cause and effect, and I like understanding the cause and effect of mechanical clocks. I started repairing old-fashioned phonographs and gramophones, and the motors in those were quite simple clockwork motors in the very old ones, and I found I could repair those, so I moved on to clocks, which I find are combination of art and craft and science. We all have those little moments when we repair something for someone. So I recently did a symphony clock which has a disc that turns at the top and plays a tune, and this lady brought it in and her father hadn't heard the tune since he was 5 or 6 years old, and he was now very old, and she had it restored for him, and she'd taken it to 2 or 3 other repairers, and they looked at it for a few months and said no, it's not economical to fix. She brought it here and we got it going for her and restored it. And that is a special moment when they heard it working and when they'd been told it wouldn't work, so that's lovely.
Hi, my name is Robert Gripper. I'm an antique furniture restorer. I specialise in clocks. This is Harry Wotton. He does all the French polishing and the colouring, not all of it, but most of it. I've been working since 1982, I think I first started my restoration business. And you will still come across things you've never ever seen before. And you sit there and try and work them out. It is fascinating, endlessly interesting. But every process is different. Every clock, everything we work on is different. There is no such thing in restoration as a standard procedure or process. Really, everything has to be assessed differently and treated differently. Behind me, I've got 3 clock cases, long case clock cases. They're all completely different. And I think they just happen to be the last 3 cases that came into the clock shop. And it's a great example of the different techniques and skills we need to restore these pieces. If we look at this one here, this is a mahogany clock, a mahogany case, probably Regency, looking at the design of it. And it's made out of mahogany. This is a lovely flame. This is where the 2 branches of the tree in a mahogany tree go like that. You cut down through it, you get this wonderful pattern. Again, it needs some repairs. There's some damage down here. The brass pieces are missing here. We can get them cast if we need, but in the case of this one, we've got those bits to put back on. This middle case is a very interesting case. It is what we call chinoiserie. It is lacquered. And if you look at it, I don't know if you can see, but these pieces are proud. They're built up with gesso, and then they're very carefully painted and gilded in. And then the whole thing, this would have been beautifully shiny when it was first made. It's actually now quite dull. There's splits in it which we've got to repair. We've got to, this will be Harry's job, we'll have to touch in all the white bits and replace these bits that are missing. And again, bring it back to life and polish it. And then the third case is entirely different. This is actually quite a cheap old pine case, but if you look at it, it looks like it's mahogany because this is stippled. This case was painted, and it was painted to look like mahogany. So when you're restoring this, you've got to be very careful. If you start cleaning it, it'll all come off and there'll just be like a horrible pine board underneath. So this is a good example of how we have to understand what we're working on to be able to restore it properly. Steve and I mocked this up ages ago. It's an old case, and we literally decided to restore one half and not the other. And it used to be in the clock shop, so people could see actually how much a case could be brought back to life, including actually, you might notice that the face is being cleaned as well. I think we should have really, oh yes, and one hand has been cleaned and one not. So this is a bit of fun, this one, but it does give you a good example of what is possible.
I think it all works really well working as family, because we all have different places that we're working. We all have different things that we're doing, and
I think we also have differences of opinion, which is quite nice because it means that we can kind of balance each other out. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's really good to carry on the family business, because Fred and Millie are 4th generation now, and if my grandfather Fred were to know that this was happening, he would be beside himself with joy. He would be so happy. And the other thing is, it's just nice to hand on the skills as well and know that the skills are going to last forever, not die out, and that's going to go on forever, hopefully.
I think it's nice for us to have the connection as well, as we never met our great-granddad, and you always talk so fondly about him that it's nice to feel like we're carrying that on. Even though we didn't meet him, it's like a part of the family that's carrying on, and it's lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about the techniques that you used.
Yes.
Yeah, and you've still got
showed me
tools that were his and things.
Absolutely.
You know. Yeah, so I think that's just lovely.
Yeah, those tools will be handed on as well.
Yeah.
So, and you know, from one Fred to another Fred, 3 generations down. I absolutely love it, the way that Fred has progressed so quickly and almost has a natural ability to do things with clocks and watches, and it's now turning up the most tiny parts, and parts that I now have huge difficulty doing. But now you're doing them just like that, and I'm so proud.
Thank you. I mean, it's the way the apprenticeship works. Instead of like all the books and stuff that most apprenticeships have, I've just been working, and I think it's the best way for me to learn. And not many apprenticeships do it that way anymore.
Just purely practical.
Yeah. We all get on really well here, and I think that it helps a lot because we all help each other out.
I don't think of the other clockmakers as anything apart from just a part of our family, and we treat each other the same, don't we? There's no differences between any of us. I'm really proud of Millie, who's now workshop manager and also heads a superb team in the office.
Yeah, so the easiest way to get hold of us, please do phone at any point. We are always at the end of the phone and happy to have a chat if you've got questions about anything. The other way is emails, which we find really helpful because you can send over some photos. We can give a little bit of advice over email before you come to the shop, because we have a lot of people come to us from quite far away nowadays. So to save you the journey, we can do things over email. So if you want to get in touch, email or phone.